You don't hear any background noises or anything like that, yeah?
Hey, people.
Hey
What
guys,
up? Here with Nelson, Gombakomba Jr.,
the one and only.
my partner in crime. This is Mitt Wolf. We just had an amazing episode with a Christopher Norton Walker, amazing headlining comedian in the UK. Um, he's inspired me so much. And we talked about so many different concepts about performing, about how to get to headlining. So check out that episode. But this is a follow-up episode on one particular aspect that is a difference between UK comedy upbringing, let's say, versus US comedy upbringing. And I didn't know this, and I wanted Nelson to kind of share a little bit of his insight onto the style and learning of stand-up comedy in the UK, and particularly what Christopher Norton Walker, um, talked about was the ability to play on stage, right? The ability to kind of like jovially play and change your attitude and emotions, and this concept of clowning, which honestly I thought, I clown around with my friends, I play with my friends, but there's a Shakespearean kind of theater concept to all this that I am not privy to because I never took acting classes or anything like that. I took improv. So we have some things like that, but yeah, I just wanted Nelson to kind of elaborate more on that.
So, when you look at British performances, the culture in itself, the history in itself, it goes way back. Like in history, theater has always been a big part of this country. In the Middle Ages, you had the court jesters. That's the funny dude that would tell jokes to the king, but he also had to do it in such a way where he didn't take it too far. He'd be playful because if he wasn't funny, back in them days, he'd probably get killed. Now, perhaps that's an exaggeration, but it basically comes back from those days, those theatrical days. And because the UK is a country where the culture has been like, with a lot of these people, they all grew up in the towns, they'd all go to the pub, blah, blah, blah. Then they've had like, then they'll have like the local theater, the local pantomime, yeah. So it's very communal in the sense that when you're now in that space, it's less about ego, it's less about trying to prove, okay, yeah, I'm funny. It's just being playful. So one thing I do like about British comedy in the sense that as opposed to American comedy, British comedy, like they lower themselves beneath you. It's very self-deprecating. It's not like telling you, oh, I'm funny, like doing it from a point of, authority. It's literally just doing it from a point where they put themselves below you. There's like the whole humility aspect, so that there's, it disarms in a way. So I feel like over here, the whole idea of play is really big in the sense that when we're on stage, we're not so much trying to be like, hey, I'm the smartest guy in the room. It's all about my ego, blah, blah. It's like, hey, guys, do you want to play? Because play is like more of an innocent approach that is egoless, and that's more universal. Whereas if you approach it as if you're the smartest guy in the room, there is a bit of ego in that because you're telling people you know more than they do. Now, that can be effective as well, but it's more like a preacher style of performance. Like, everyone listen to me. I got this is that, blah, blah, blah. Now, it is funny, don't get me wrong, but like that's that style where you're just telling yourself, I'm the smartest guy in the room. These are my observations, blah, blah, blah. Whereas traditionally, the jester is not trying to be the smartest guy in the room. He's just the most playful guy in the room. And that's like that's an easier comedian to listen to because he's not trying to say he's smarter than you. He's not trying to be above you in status. He's just trying to make you laugh. So whether you're the richest man in the village or the poorest man, you can both laugh at the jester because he's just more about being playful. Now, how, I think that is quite effective in the sense that it's more energy focused. It's more about reading the room and understanding just those little intricacies, like Chris was saying in the previous episode. Sometimes you come in, you joke, you're hiding behind something, you're hiding behind a board, and that in itself is funny. Something that you wouldn't do at another gig. Um, Playing with the mic stand, just trying to hide those little stupid things. The reason why they're popular here is because in a culture, it's traditionally about that whole court jester style. Now, people reading this may question where I'm getting this from, and they may say, "Oh, Nelson, how do you know this?" Blah blah blah. But one thing about UK comedy is that, as opposed to American comedy, UK comedy is more about being playful, whereas American comedy is more about being the smartest guy in the room, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So I wanted to delve deeper into some of the examples that you just gave, right? And these are the
Yeah.
examples that Christopher Walker gave. Was he did a set where halfway through he just went behind a banner and did his entire set from there, and then peeked his head
Yeah.
out like, I'm still here, guys, right? Like that kind of thing is
Yeah.
really funny. I just don't get, I think I'm thinking too logically, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a framework on
This
how
is
how that kind of thought comes out. Like, okay, I'm doing my stand up. Oh, I see a banner. Wouldn't it be funny if I went like I don't get it, right? Like I don't get how that happens.
it's about the inner kid. So this type of comedy is less focused on wordplay, words,
Right.
all that. It's just more about being not necessarily silly, but playful. It brings out the inner child in us. So in there's this pantomime thing, are you familiar with the pantomime? It's like a form of theater where, you know, someone shouts back, it's like, ah, how do I describe pantomime? Okay, it's like theater, but it's very exaggerated. The thing about those type of art forms is, to the British person that's watching this, it's very obvious that it's theater. So there's no reason to try to like take it too serious or try to analyze it any further. So when someone is at a comedy show and they're doing that jester style comedy where it's like being silly, they're not necessarily trying to be like, hey, I'm not trying to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm just being playful. The thing about that is like it it disarms you. There's an inner child aspect of it. There's that inner child, and it brings about the whole idea of humility and status. Now, you can laugh at this person because they've lowered themselves below you. Even if you're the poorest man, even if you're the richest man, the jester is just here to like be playful and just laugh. It's that inner child thing. It goes beyond trying to make comedy smart. It just focuses on comedy being what it really is, comedy. It doesn't need to be super complicated. It just needs to be playful. So if you come to the UK open mic, you find some ex go on with the bag on their head. Like there's a guy, I know, there's a guy. I, I haven't seen him in a long time, but like I think his name was like the man with the bag on his head,
Yeah.
bro. Things like that are common on the UK underground because
That's so funny.
they're not going there to be like to get some sort of TED talk or to get a lecture.
Yeah.
If they want a TED talk, they go to TED. If they want a lecture, they know where to go for that. They're just coming to laugh, and that's the culture that is over here in the sense that their approach to comedy ends up creating comedians that are quite different to a lot of comedians that the rest of the world creates. Because in the UK, you can make anything funny, man. That's not even an exaggeration. You can go on a stage with a bag on, as long as you are at least uh, like you know addressing the fact that it is an attempt at comedy. They're willing to hear you out because this is the country that gave you this whole pantomime style. It's all Shakespeare, and this is a country of Shakespeare. So theater is a big thing here. Theater is something that's traditional. they understand that comedy doesn't need to be serious, it just needs to be funny. So that's where that playfulness comes in. In the UK, if you're a playful comedian, man, people love you. You don't even need to be smart to say,
You don't
hey,
need to
man,
have jokes. You just come in with a bag over your head and
it needs
make
to
a
be
bag.
funny. It needs to be funny though. That's the thing. So you just can't, like, it's on some level, even if it's being playful, it still needs to get laughs.
You still need
Like
punchlines
you,
somehow.
well, not necessarily punchlines, but you need funny moments. There was a comedian years back that I used to perform with, Fedor Todd. The reason why I name him is because there's no, we're on good terms. I haven't spoken to him in years, but I'm sure it's all good and stuff. He used to start gigs off with a spatula, and like he used to, people would come, people would laugh at that stuff. Be like, I'm coming here with my spatula. Or there's also like a good friend of mine, President Obonjo, who makes the audience stand up and sing for him before he starts performing. Now, he is loved all across the country, bro. This is not stuff that like maybe popular in America and stuff, but the UK comedy scene is very experimental. But I think the audience is more open to it because of the theater background. They accept comedy for what it is, that it's just something to laugh at. Whereas in America, you guys don't have such a standard. You're like, okay, you need to be the funniest guy in the room. You need to make me laugh, blah blah blah. It's more about buzz, buzz, buzz.
Yeah.
Whereas
Oh,
in
bars.
the
Yeah.
okay, like for lack of a better word, but it needs to have that sort of I'm the smartest guy in the room vibe. That whole Chris Rock where you're preaching to people. But in the UK, man, if you can pull it off, they will just found that at the theater. Oh, that's rather Shakespearean, sir. You can actually get people come up to you after the gig and say, "Sir, I found the bag on the head quite experimental, but it does remind me of a rather Brechtian style of theater." Or was that, bro? They break it down over here, man. That's why it's different.
But
But
the funny thing, okay, there's such a disconnect there
mm,
because the guy with the bag over his head probably didn't think about, oh, Shakespeare did this back in the, like the way the audience is perceiving it, like, oh, it's
yeah.
experimental and it reminds me of the turn of the century.
Mm.
The guy on the bag with the with the bag over his head, he just brought a bag from home, put it over his head, and he was like, "Is this funny, guys? Like, thank you."
But that's the thing. That bro. As weird as that sounds, mate. I've been in gigs, right, where people are doing some silly stuff, but they are intellectuals sitting down watching this, like people from university, like
So
really, it's so weird, man. But I feel like, and just to give more context to this, the reason why the UK sometimes is more willing to accept um weird forms of stand-up comedy is because it, America says they invented stand-up comedy, which we do give them credit for, but the UK has had theater for hundreds of years.
yeah,
So a person being funny on a stage is not necessarily a new concept to them. It's been done in different forms.
yeah,
Maybe they didn't always have a microphone and like they do in America, but there's always been a UK version of some guy on a stage making people laugh, whether it's a
yeah,
clown, a jester. And in the UK, over how it was developed, it's less about ego. It's just more about being playful, bring out the inner kid, that clown, those exaggerations. You know, it's it's an interesting way to look at comedy because sometimes maybe we overthink this thing, man. Because
you do. And I'm still overthinking it because I'm thinking, okay, the next time I go on stage, how do I bring out my inner kid? I don't know how to do that, right? So I'm just like thinking about, do I
yeah,
bring a spoon from home? Like what? I mean, that kind of thing is premeditated, right? It's just like
yeah,
you've got to. I'm just imagining the comedian that brought a bag from home and put it
mm.
over his head. He probably had a list of 100 things that he was gonna do and just try different things, right? Like so it's
Yeah,
premeditated, but it's still play. it's still
Yeah.
bringing out the inner kid. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to understand is how do you, it's not all in the moment, right? Like there's a lot of planning to this play piece as well, right?
I feel like it depends on, okay, so what you're saying is, at what point does it become like premeditated? Or at what point do they start saying, okay, I need to get a spoon, I need to get,
I need
this
to
and
go
that?
behind that banner and do
Well,
comedy or what? Like
I,
I
I
don't know
feel like
where the thought comes from, and then how do you get to that point where now you're performing in that way? You
I
know,
feel like it's less about the thought. It's more just the fact that over here the audience is more like, it's more receptive to that style of experimental comedy, which I don't know whether that's the case or not in America, but I can
I
definitely
mean,
tell you.
there's alt scenes here where people do some crazy things
Mm,
as well. And I truly believe that comedy is comedy everywhere. Like
yeah,
that's why people are able to perform that are American that can perform in Europe and
mm,
India and whatever, right? Like
yeah.
it all translates. Um, so I don't understand how to do that though. I don't know
Um,
how to clown around in the
let
moment, right? Unless I actually planned it. That, you know.
I mean, you can plan it. I don't know whether it's about planning. It's less about planning and it's more about letting your inner playful kid out. If
All right.
so,
Sorry, we're back. Technical difficulties here. So
so if you were to take that approach, I feel like it's more about unleashing your inner child, being playful, and focusing less on the logic and somehow getting something that's in between, something that I guess will impress someone who's out looking for structured comedy, but also being playful enough to create comedy in the moment. Because if your character is on point, if you know who you are on stage, if everything is like, okay, like I have sorted out the lens through which I see the world, that sort of thing, um, you can get to a point where you can be comfortable just being playful. Because there's times when I think that comedy, right? Sometimes the words don't even matter. It's energy. It's energy, and there's like you can say words in the same. You can say green pad, bro, a motherfucking green pad, bro, and like that can somehow get a reaction out of something if you set it up right, as random as that sounds. Like how Dave Chappelle says, like sometimes he has a punchline for jokes he hasn't written yet,
yeah,
and he finds a way to like put it all together.
yeah,
That's when it becomes interesting because I'm like, there's shortcuts that can then create really good jokes. You know,
yeah,
there's ways of doing things where it's like it's just energy, and those eggs that understand that as long as they're reading the room right and as long as they're being playful, they can just about survive the gig, man.
no, I understand that. I don't even argue that because that's that whole branding persona thing, right? Like
Yeah,
if your audience is there, they just want to see you say some stuff that's funny, and
yeah,
they just want to see you. I don't. They just want to hang out, right? Like I don't know.
yeah,
Um, and so there's a comedy duo here in the U.S. called Jesus and Miro,
yeah,
and they just
yeah.
improv everything, right? Like
Mm,
they'll do like 3-4 hour sets, and they're literally just talking off the top of their head about random stuff, and there's roasting people, and they're roasting the news, and they just do that for 4 hours and get paid and
yeah,
tour. It's crazy. But they just have such a strong brand, and people just love. They have all these catchphrases, and
mm.
they dress a certain way, and they're from a certain place.
W-
So
would you then say that they're being playful, or are they shows premeditated?
yeah, no, absolutely. They're just the kids from the block that are just like roasting everyone that's walking down the street.
Yeah.
Like, what's up with your hat, boy? You know, like that kind of
Yeah.
shit, right? Like,
I think with that sort of comedy, that is similar to the approach that we are saying earlier on, the whole idea of play. And I feel like for comedians that rely less on structured jokes and structured material, they know that they can just go there and start bringing out their inner kid, just being that kid on the side of on the side of the road, roasting people. Like, man, look at that pregnant woman over there. That sort of thing. And because these things are universal. These things are like,
that's a
bro, you
character thing. Like, this might sound politically incorrect, but that's totally a stereotype of Black people, right? In America, it's just like, we're gonna
yeah,
roast the shit out you, blah blah blah, right?
like
Like,
people all
and
over
so
the
if you
world.
play that character through, people are gonna love it. Like, it's gonna be different if I do that as an Indian
Yeah.
person. It's not gonna hit the same way. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that could be your challenge, man. There's no the rules are there, no rules. You
There
could
are
be the first Indian guy who can pull off roasting people, that sort of character
no,
where you
I'll
just
give you
come
an
in.
example. If I do an IT joke
Yeah,
or a doctor joke, it's
yeah.
gonna work way better for me than for you.
True,
It's gonna work way
true.
better because people are
It
just, oh,
depends on how
Indian
I set
doctor.
it up.
Or if I make a taxi joke, right? It's
Mm,
100% gonna work better for
yeah.
me than you, right? Actually, there are
It
lots of
depends on
taxi
how you
drivers
flip
like
it.
you too.
What's up,
Hello,
man?
straight
uh,
straight from
sit in
Africa.
the back.
It's just like,
But I feel like with these things, there's two, like comedy is like circular, man. I like that yin yang. I feel like there's the energy side, then there's the side that is technical, where you can script it, where you can write it, arrange the words, blah blah blah. But then there's also this other side of it where it's just playful, where it's like unscripted. Someone is just being, they just bring out their inner child. It doesn't matter what jokes they're saying, they're just funny. And the reason why I say that is because there's friends of mine that I've known all my life. And sometimes I go to them and I'm like, dude, if you did stand-up comedy, man, you would kill it because you have the character down to a T. How the shit you say is funny, and you don't even like try to work on these jokes, and that's already really hilarious. Like I know people like that, and that's what I always
yeah.
think. Like there's people that don't even do comedy that will be
Oh,
funnier than like some comedians out there. So there's people that just like they bring out their inner child or that character down to a T, and when they have that on the spot, it's just you know.
yeah.
Well, I feel like if you have a combination of the two, though, if you can be playful and do all that, and if you're just naturally funny, and then you add all the technical stuff, man, then you oh
Then, oh yeah, then it's amazing. I feel like this Christopher guy is that way, right? Like, he
yeah.
knows how to write jokes, plus he can be playful, and that's a lethal combination for sure.
Because imagine some guy just made you just say something profound, your brain is processing that, but then he's now hiding behind, a microphone, pretending like you can't see him, yet he's quote unquote the biggest guy in the room, those little jokes like that. Just being playful, man, because sometimes we overthink this, and the British approach is like a comedian doesn't necessarily have to be the smartest guy in the room. It just needs to be those playful.
So again, we keep saying you got to be playful. We got to be playful.
Mm.
What do I do on my next gig
You
to,
gotta be
to bring that
playful.
out?
Are you afraid of the audience? What's stopping you from being your inner child? I don't mean like be exaggerated. It's that like doing the random
In
shit.
in the moment when I go on stage,
Yeah,
let's say I'm doing my first joke, what am I thinking to be playful, or am I not thinking? Am I just like, the first
okay.
instinct I have, I should just go ahead and do that? You know,
Neat.
if I'm just like, right, like, that's my first instinct right now.
You
In
could
the
do that.
moment, that's what I wanted to do. You know, that was my version of playful. And I still have this mic in my hand. I don't need that. Right? Like, that's me just
Yeah.
doing whatever that's coming to my mind. but I don't know how well that would play for unless
No. That's the thing is
that's
the thing
improv,
is
right? So
that's
that is
improv.
exactly what improv is. You're just literally doing what you think is right.
And
Is
here's the thing, Nate. If you miss with that type of joke, you can always go back to the material that
your
you've actually
material.
written. So it's good to have a combination of the two,
Ah,
because like if you're doing like 10 shows in 10 different cities, right?
yeah,
All those cities cannot be identical word for word. You
no.
have to at least go to a different city and acknowledge, like, damn, you got, bad weather, or you got crazy weather, that sort of thing. You need to be able to read the room. You can't just go on and start telling the jokes. Joke number one, just you can't just go on stage and just be like, grrr, just speed through your material. Like,
Yeah.
acknowledge the
This is the
room.
hardest thing about stand up is there's all these words that are just so woo woo and you're
Mm.
just like read the room. I don't know what that means.
Okay,
Like
I'll tell
be
you my
playful. I don't know
understanding.
what that means. It's like yeah.
My understanding of the room is, let's say when the act before you is finishing up, oh, they're doing their jokes. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been blah, blah, blah. Thank you. They do their round of applause. Now, next on stage, we'll bring on Midwolf. Woo! When you at that point, your heart is beating. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you when
No,
they
mine
announce
is right now and
my
I'm not even on stage. So I'm
the
just like
thing is that sort of energy, bro, that sort of energy that you feel, you decide whether it's fear or flight.
right.
That's I feel like that's where it starts. I feel like that those moments determine how your set is going to go. If hearing your name, hearing, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands out for me, beloved. If you when it slowly dies down, when you know that the only next thing to do is now to walk onto that stage, you decide, like, I feel like those few seconds are the moments in which you decide how it's going to go. You can either be scared and go on like, "Whew, man," which I used to do. I'd be like so scared, like, guys, I'm nervous as well, this is such a scary room, blah blah.
Right.
But that is me acknowledging the nerves. That's me acknowledging the room. Like, okay, the energy in this room is nerve wracking to me. And because I was honest at that point, I feel like it connected with the audience, because being honest and saying stuff for what it really is helps to connect. Now, the second stage of it, though, later on in my career, when I'd hear the name, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands over for Nelson Gombakomba. I'd get excited. So that nerves, I'd be like, ooh. Like when I start my shows, I always do the, I was like, God, be with me, man. I'm about to do it. But I felt that energy, so that by the time that I walked on stage, I already have it in my head that, listen, man, I'm here now. I'm excited to see you. Let's
Yeah.
play. Let's be playful. And it's also similar to what Chris was saying, where like back in the day, and think he still does it now. He would start shouting before he even go to the stage. Start shouting all the way walking out to the stage. Like if it's one of them stages where he has to walk through the crowd, like, "Hey guys, put your hands together for me," blah blah blah. Literally, those little moments, man, they switch the energy in the room. And I understand that some of the stuff that we say is vague, and maybe we take it for granted because I experience it regularly, so I just end up using cliched words. But I the only way I can describe it is those moments, man, when you've been called onto the stage, when you're now like, when the round of applause is fading, when people that don't know you have that blank slate and they're like, who is this dude? Those first impressions, man. That's where you decide how it's going to go. Because whether you're going to be nervous, whether you're going to be blah, 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 those few moments you decide which energy you're going to go with and call it out for what it really is. If you're excited, make sure everything is like connected. Because one thing that I feel like produces bad comedy is when things don't match If you're overconfident, you can't say, I'm really nervous. People will be like, you're lying, you do this all the time, you know. But also, if you're like really nervous, you're shaking, and you try to tell us about how you've been smashing all these women. Oh, hey guys, I'm a player, but you're clearly scared. It doesn't match, you know, it doesn't match. So I feel like it starts within you and it just spreads across to the room, man. Because this is a weird thing. It can be magical. It's hard to explain it, but when everyone's on the same page, that's the sort of stuff that you get.
So what you just described is controlling the room in my mind, right?
Yeah.
Like you're you're not actually reading what's there. They're reacting off of what you are presenting.
The best comics tell you that it's you who determines what's funny, not them. Go on stage saying, hey guys, this is how the show is gonna go. Don't go on stage and start looking at their faces, looking at their grumpy faces, and then feeling disheartened and be like, what do I do next? That doesn't work.
Right.
You gotta go on there, be in control of the situation, read the room, make sure everything matches. If you are indeed shaking from, the nerves, acknowledge that. Just say, hey guys, I'm scared, shitless, blah, blah. Sometimes that might get people on your side.
Yeah.
If, whatever you do, it needs to match. And it's not just about you, it's about like matching the mood. If your opening joke is about describing, like whatever you say, that opening joke needs to match what's in the room. Dude, that's one of the ways I can describe it. Because if it doesn't match, then those people that hear comedy a lot will be like, oh, first joke just went down. They already know. Sometimes I judge a character, I judge an act in the first few seconds. I'm like, you chose that opening joke. Nah, that's, yeah.
Wow, really? So even if that joke is funny, you're like, the room is not this way right now.
Do you remember a few episodes back when we were talking about Team Up and you said like there were four comedians that came in and they were like just doing the same shit and not
Yeah.
getting reactions. But
Yeah.
then he came on and was like, you're the crowd that could be, like
Yeah.
those sort of things, because he's acknowledging the room, he's reading it. He's like, listen, I know if I do my jokes, you're just going to end up giving me the same treatment that you gave these guys.
Yeah.
So let's try to do something different. But that's something that's decided moments before going on stage. You don't leave your house knowing the first four guys are going to be shit.
Right.
You leave your house thinking I'm going to do some comedy, but then if the guys turn out to be horrible, now you gotta start thinking, oh shit, yeah, now I gotta do something special to lift the energy in the room. And in that story that you told me, he did. So that's why I'm saying like it's about reading the room, understanding the energy in the room, calling it what it is, making sure everyone is on the same page, and just being honest about how controlling the room, just being honest about what everyone is feeling, the mood that's in the room. You get it wrong, they will be against you, because you can even start with the sexist joke if the mood that night. Okay, no, I don't mean to say I say sexist joke, but let's say if the mood that night is laughing at the craziest humor, you start with the most offensive joke, they're laughing. It's showtime. So it's about understanding where you are, man, and calling it what it is.
Got it. Yeah, and I think this is why they say stage time is so important, is because
Mm,
you'll never be able to read this in a book or learn it from a coach or anything.
no,
Never. Or learn it from a podcast. Sorry, viewers, but I don't think
it's
it's gonna
literally
happen.
just
Yeah.
because it's you're not just talking about something that's true to you. You're talking about something that's true to the audience as well.
Yeah.
You know, you're saying, "Hey guys, I see you're not really laughing at jokes tonight. Like, so what can we do to raise the bar?" And you're kind of having that conversation with them,
Yeah.
but you're like I was saying earlier on, man, there's this whole jester style where it's like when the room is dead, you can't come on and be like, I'm the smartest guy in the room now. You just gotta come on and be like, hey guys, I know you're struggling to laugh tonight, but I just want to play, man. Play with me, lady in the front row seat. Come play with me. Say with the bold head. Man, what's your name? Already now you're starting to like raise the energy out because you're being playful. And even if they were really not laughing that night, they're like, okay, this is different. At least it's acknowledging
Yeah.
what's around,
Yeah.
you know. You gotta acknowledge the environment, man.
Yeah. I get it. Cool, man. That I think I get it, but I won't get it until I get back on stage again.
You
And
gotta get back on that horse, bro. Because, man, here's the thing. You tell me, oh, okay, next time you do a show, man, those seconds after they announce your name, after people clap you, those few seconds, pay attention to how you're feeling in those moments. Don't ignore it. Don't ignore if you're nervous, acknowledge it. If you're like really calm, really excited, acknowledge it, but like understand that emotion, because at the end of the day, whichever style that you choose to go for, that's your style, but it needs to be true to you. So one thing that I've noticed about comedy and about life in general is things cannot get better unless we call them what they really are,
right.
unless we really do address it for what it truly is. I used to be nervous, and like, I go to the depth of that and found ways to deal with that. And I found that when it comes to like stand-up comedy, calling it what it really is in the room, and that's good. Those type of jokes, that's what connects with people, because people can also see what's in the room. They might not be comedians, but they'll be thinking, man, when is he gonna mention that lamp that's hanging on the side? When is he gonna
Yeah.
mention that thing that's in the room? Because they also have those thoughts. And if you do come in and you feel like, hey guys, what about that shit that's over there? Whatever, it's kind of thing like that. But whatever it is, though, you know, like I feel like it all starts internally. Pay attention to how you're feeling. If you sort out your emotions, if you sort out what you're feeling on stage, your voice won't crack. You will say whatever you say with conviction. Because sometimes it's not funny when a comedian is telling a joke and you can feel that even in his voice is not convinced it's funny. This crack is like, yeah, you can't do that. You have to say that joke with purpose, like, hey guys, this is crazy, this is ridiculous, there's a reason why like those talk show hosts have that speech pattern where it's clearly blah 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 blah. They can tell you when they're setting up and then when they're doing the punchline. So the other day, my wife walked into the room and she gave me this. Little did she know, I already did this.
That's
It's got
yeah.
that two-stage sentences where it's like they do the build up, then they do the setup.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just how I look at things, man. Because I feel like a lot of it is energy, but also a lot of it is calling out things for what they really are, man.
Yeah.
Like
I like
if
what you
you
said.
really,
It's actually a full circle. You got to learn the technique, and then you have to learn the instinct part of it.
yeah,
It's technique, instinct, right? Like, yeah, it's a
man.
whole different perspective on it, right? We just think it's just like technique,
Nah, 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 nah.
and then a little bit of branding, but it's you got to figure out this
You
middle.
gotta do
Yeah,
technique. You gotta be playful.
yeah,
Instinct has to be in there.
yeah,
You know, it's just, and also you have to understand something that we mentioned on episodes way back is that these are universal truths. People already know some of these jokes that we're telling. They just don't know they already know it. So you have
oh,
to
yeah.
be like, sometimes they'll be laughing like, man, How come I didn't think of that? Or they're like, man, I always say that type of stuff to my friends.
Right.
That's because whilst we may be saying it in a set of words that they haven't had before, these are all universal truths. And if you can get universal truths down to a T, you're gonna be a killer comedian, whether you're the smartest guy in the room or the comedy jester, whichever style you go for. If you're just calling it what it truly is, and if people are relating to that, and if people are like, man, at some point, then whichever you do, it becomes full
See, that's
circle.
the technique part, I think, right? That part you can figure out. Okay, that's observation. I can figure out.
Mm.
Every time I go to a doctor, there's certain things that happen.
Yeah.
And regardless of what country you're in, something's gonna happen. That's the same. They'll check your blood pressure, whatever,
Mm.
right? So there's universal truths. So that's a technique. That's not the instinct part. So I just struggle with the instinct part. And I think the only thing you can do is just get on
Yeah.
stage and really get out of your logical mind and try to risk something, risk something every time.
One last thing that I just want to say on this topic is that my drama teacher, and I can give him a shout out because he's a fan of mine, Mr. Joseph. Shout out, Mr. Joseph.
Hey.
He used to say something that like was always interesting to me. He said like sometimes when actors are on stage, they're saying the words, they're saying words, so they're just saying lines. They're like blah 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 blah. A true actor gives feeling behind the lines. They know the purpose of the line that they're saying, and they give it something. They give it that extra kick. Like it's the difference between amazing actors and average actors. Like amazing actors, they're delivering lines like, feel the truth inside these lines, even though it's something someone else wrote. I'm making you feel like these are my words. And as a comedian, don't just say your jokes, man. Don't just say, so the other day I got on the bus and, because already that speech pattern subconsciously tells you that this is something that they're just saying words. But if you put emotion in your words, if you like, guys, the other day I got off the bus and I was like, Jesus, you add those little nuances that make the same sentence sound a little bit more entertaining to listen to, just because you've dramatized it, you've added some sauce to it. The same sentence that can be read by two different actors will be different because one actor chooses to put emotion behind the words. They choose to bring the words to life. Also, the other one reads it like they're reading from a teleprompter. So the other day, my wife and I went to the supermarket. Like the other day, my crazy wife and I went to the supermarket, man. See my crazy wife, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I see the difference already. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I hope the audience will be
We both
able
went, woo!
to.
Will Smith. Woo!
sometimes, sometimes I'll be like,
Damn.
nah, but
We
the
got
thing
this.
is, let me just say though, like if you're listening to this and if none of this doesn't make sense to you, that's so cool because I'm speaking from the heart. I'm speaking from how I know this to be, and that's the approach that I take. However, you can go find out yourself by going on that stage and telling me if I'm wrong. When they announce your name, any comedian, I don't care where you are in the world, when they announce your name, it's like, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for. And when that laughter dies down, when it's now time to walk on that stage, you just like there's a feeling that you feel, man. Those 2-3 seconds. Hi. So my name is Nelson Gomba. Oh, you can't do that. Because the energy that you feel in those few seconds determine how the show is going to go. If you don't address it, if you don't call it the wrong thing or that sort of thing, then the audience is gonna know, man. They're gonna be like, You look nervous, but you're telling us jokes like you're so confident. That doesn't end up, So just pay attention to that feeling, man. And once you understand that feeling that comes on soon after your name is announced, then you decide how the show is going to go. Because it's just down to instinct and the room that you're in.
Guys, another banger, man.
Gang,
You guys learned a
all
lot.
day, every day.
This was so great. Thank you, Nelson. Appreciate you as always.
No problem, brother. I appreciate you too, man.
All
It's
right.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right. And this is episode 11.
12.
12. Damn.
Oh, because we did another one earlier.
Just did another one.
We are workhorses on this day, man.
Episode 12, son. Have a good one. Bye.
Gang. Peace, my brother.